So, with all the focus in our lives on performance and success and goals, I think that we often undervalue something, and that is that we're human and we can use that to our advantage. A lot of the time, self development comes with this no pain, no gain narrative. And it's kind of ironic because the more we push ourselves to try to be robots, the more we box ourselves in. All of my achievements and experiences and qualifications, I think the most supportive growth I've experienced is from practicing mindfulness over the long term. So, no more hacks and taking in more knowledge, but growing core personal qualities that carry me through and have redefined my possibilities. And there isn't this kind of official list of mindfulness qualities. You can kind of see these as results of practice, they're within the practice. In fact, John Kabat-Zinn describes these as attitudes of mindfulness. The way I would describe it is really evolving how you show up and perhaps developing qualities that you previously thought were fixed personality traits. So when we practice in openness and curiosity and non-judgmental awareness, we strengthen the relationship that we have with ourselves. So mindfulness is a lot about how we relate to things. We see our sore points, we know our patterns, we perhaps recognize some of the standards that we hold ourselves to, and we can start to let go of these to build trust and clarity. And of course, a greater sense of calm and connection. So there's so much we can say about these qualities, and we'll definitely unpack them individually further in future. And for this topic in particular, it's such a big topic that we're going to split it into two. Today's video is going to be about perhaps how we can use some of these qualities to transform how we show up day to day, how they're connected to skills like resilience and adaptability, and how they can help us work smarter. And then in the next video, in the future, we'll be going on to talk a bit more about higher influence and impact. All right, let's start with the first one. So, stress isn't determined by change or challenges. It's determined by your ability to handle them. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but when it comes down to it in practice, in reality, what's it worth when you crumble under any instability? We want that strength to handle pressure. We want to be able to bounce back when plans fall through or the new chapter becomes a nightmare. It's funny because resilience we often associate to having thick skin, but I think resilience is as much about softness as it is about toughness. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Firstly, let's start with this quality of calmness. Calmness offers us a protection that doesn't leave us cold or shut off. And actually, sometimes we think about it as a trait or even a choice. And we forget that calmness is a bodily state that we can deepen through practice. It's really practicing relaxing our nervous system and deepening our capacity for stress and day-to-day problems. When we do that with our body, our mind tends to follow. So this can really change our experiences and our reactions. The resilience isn't just an attitude, it's a practice. And then the second piece really is about being in touch with yourself. And some people might think of this as something that's a bit, gooey or emotional, but actually being in touch with yourself makes you less sensitive because you've got the tools that you need to handle the knockbacks or not take things personally. So take compassion, for example. You cannot switch off and bounce back efficiently without compassion. Again, compassion doesn't have to be this kind of like fluffy self-love thing. In fact, compassion is the strength to change behavior that is against you. And of course, there is acceptance of just being human here. There's honesty of what you need, the action that you need to take in order to protect yourself. Maybe it's boundaries. Maybe it's saying, okay, I just need some more time with this. And that comes back to those qualities that underpin a really strong relationship with yourself. So calm will keep us steady and compassion often softens the blows, but it's our problem solving that will see us through. People will call you in a panic, not because you're a superhero, perhaps sometimes you can be a bit of a fixer, but actually problems rarely need magic. They just need perspective. And that's what people are looking for. It's very hard to maintain clear-headedness when there is overwhelm, but it's an incredible skill when you can do that. And of course, mindfulness is coming back to that broad awareness so we can make connections and we have the skills to put things back together when we need to. Often, hard work is known as being helpful, being reliable, having a can do attitude. I think these are the things that tend to fall away when we get overwhelmed. Resilience and awareness are what are needed to sustainably show up like this naturally without all of the inner conflict. So now let's talk about actually taking opportunity from the change that we experience. Everything is always changing. There's that well-known phrase of change is the only constant. We're starting to realize that the norm is unpredictability. People and opportunities, they come and go. Ideas can go out of date. Jobs and places might no longer serve us. Things that worked before might not necessarily work now. And I think that we love to dream about this state where we're totally secure and free. But actually, I don't think that freedom is something that we earn or a destination we get to. I think freedom can only ever be something we experience, and we experience that through adaptability. And actually, the foundation of adaptability is acceptance and letting go. Letting go of trying to control the uncontrollable, letting go of being hung up on the reality of a situation, letting go of our attachment to old plans and expectations and assumptions because we're getting attached to things all the time. We need to learn to do that without a roadmap. We need the flexibility. So we've got a really powerful tool or powerful tools in acceptance and letting go for growth, finding that opportunity and change. And of course, with change comes lessons, but we can only learn if we're open to learning. So you might have heard of this term, growth mindset. It's very popular in self-development. And the idea is really believing that you can improve and that you can grow. Your qualities aren't fixed by being open to challenges, to being open to feedback. Where does this openness come from? And in fact, Jon Kabat-Zinn will tell us that learning mode is what happens when we stop judging. So of course, non-judging, beginner's mind, they're fundamental to Zen and mindfulness. And they are the attitudes that will help us explore places, to experiment and go to places that we previously wouldn't do and find new solutions by walking through those doors. And of course, mindfulness is about really training in awareness. So we develop a habit of reflection, and reflection deepens our learning. Meditation is inquiry, not necessarily for answers, but for getting in the rhythm of always asking the questions. So you can really see how this pairs together. And in fact, this way of life, this constant path of curiosity and learning, being with the present instead of fighting it, is what mindfulness is. Perhaps when we do believe that our abilities are fixed is when we rely on pushing harder. And I don't know when we got to this point where effort beats efficiency. And we see this in hustle culture, more hours, more doing. We want to produce good stuff. We want to get stuff done. We want to feel helpful, of course. But really, the people that make the biggest impact don't do more. They input in a way that preserves quality and energy. It feels like productivity has become this term where perhaps we should get a swear jar for every time we say about being productive or not being productive. But it's like this strive for output regardless of the cost, which is not the essence of it really. But that's why I like to focus on efficiency, because it reminds us to watch the cost, that there is a balance between the output and the input. And meditation is a great way to optimize cognitive functioning. The research is really starting to show how it can improve intelligence, focus, memory, things like this. So if we build this into our day-to-day in the way that we work, we can really utilize practices, perhaps in our breaks, or to move from focus mode to creative mode. Maybe this sounds like, okay, yeah, we're using meditation as a hack then. But actually, if you do this over time and practice this over time, it really starts to become the way that you naturally operate. Creativity is a great example of this. I never thought that I was a creative person. I'd always learned you're either analytical or you're creative, left brain, right brain sort of thing. And actually, as I've practiced mindfulness over time, what I've learned is creativity is a state, not a trait. And interestingly, the brain states that support creativity are opposite to what you'd find in somebody who's really stressed in that moment. managing stress day to day, and using meditation to bring us back to those aware states are really going to help support our creativity. Then that state can strengthen over time. Can see why people think it is more of a personality, or you just become very practiced to tapping into it. It's funny because it's the thing that when you stop trying, it comes. So it's like the ultimate motivation for not pushing harder. But anyway, zooming out, there is this overall functioning enhancement that can happen when we practice mindfulness, and actually realizing that so much of our functioning is really determined by what happens inside of us, affected by the relationship that we have with ourselves. Actually, a lot of people always say to me, like, oh, how do you do so much? Really, the size of a challenge depends on how you're wired and how you approach it. So mindfulness has really helped me show up in a way and approach things in a way that conserves my energy, that maintains my calm. So it produces this real natural motivation. There's something in the tank most of the time. I'm not motivated all the time, but it's much more sustainable. I think that when people say, how can I be more productive? Sometimes they're actually just trying to find the energy for things, to do things without feeling like, oh, it's such a slog all the time. So I think that we can complement productivity hacks with a more sustainable solution that perhaps makes things a bit more automatic when we pay attention to that connection between what goes on inside of us and our day to day performance. But like I say, we won't always be motivated. And this is why you hear people encourage discipline. And I don't disagree with that. However, what I would say is discipline is doing it even though it's hard, it's pushing through that resistance. However, awareness is making it easier by minimizing the resistance. So if you add awareness to discipline, then maybe you've got a really good mix with a consistency that I always try to come away from something as soon as I feel myself lagging. I always try to prioritize my efficiency, but I always have that little voice in my head that says, oh, you can just do a bit more. You're fine. Those performance habits do really run deep. And I think that it takes a lot of self management to break the habits, letting go when we get sucked into perfectionism, actually trusting our ability rather than over preparing and overcooking things all the time. I think we create so much waste in our work because we don't trust ourselves. And actually, we should value ourselves and our abilities a little bit more. The other thing is that discipline's not going to help you if you're avoiding doing something and you don't know you're avoiding it. So that's where awareness is really helpful to overcome that sort of head under the carpet approach. And it reinforces that consistency because you're actually looking at it honestly and saying, okay, what's going to help me here? What's actually going to work here? What needs do I need to meet to make this easier? And of course, finally, your progress is never determined by how many things you can personally do well. It's determined by how well you can utilize the people and the environment that you have around you. Seeing where you're not so good at something, where it's taken a lot of time and perhaps would be better placed elsewhere, isn't finding a weakness. It's being honest with yourself. It's really smart to recognize the things that you're not smart at. I think that delegation piece is powerful, but it takes that honesty, it takes that self security, and it takes that letting go. We've said this before, we're not robots. There is no one size fits all rhythm. Consistency is consistent when you lay the foundations for it to stick easier. So really, this is just the tip of the iceberg with these qualities, but you can see how mindfulness helps us rethink that day-to-day progress by recognizing and using that we're human. So next time we're going to be taking this even further to talk about our influence in people and the general wider direction that we can move in. So make sure you subscribe because then you won't miss that. And the last thing to note is that, of course, with anything, application is key. Watching this video is never going to be enough. You have to practice and see for yourself. So you're welcome to take my free meditations that I will link underneath the video here. And that will give you an introduction into some of the simple practices that we can do day to day and reinforce how we can use some of these qualities.